All right, guys, this week we're going to talk about wolf hunting with Tom Schneider of Stuck in the Rut. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, the host, and I'm coming at you from the Broken Town studio right here in Clark Fork, Idaho. Really excited about this episode, guys. It's a topic that we cover a lot on the show, and we are going to get right into it. You're going to love this guest, somebody I've been following for a while, and I'm, again, pretty excited to have him on. So before we get to that, I need to talk to you guys real quick about some announcements that it basically pertained to the episode from last week. Wow. What a response we got off of that episode that I did with Guy over at Western Contours, where we were talking about the state of hunting and how hunters tend to treat each other and what needs to change or slow down the trajectory as to the path that we're on. And I appreciate everybody's emails. I mean, I had so many, I've barely had the time to go through them all. Thank you guys for sending those, because that feedback is super important to me, and it means a lot, and I get a lot out of it. And it helps me kind of adjust where I needed to adjust, and helps us kind of, finite the focus that we need to be focused on as hunters and as a community. So that's been really helpful. Sorry for those of you that may have been a little offended by some of our opinions, but most of the stuff we got was super positive, and I'm glad we have a lot of agreement. So that gives me a really good foundation to go off of. And with that said, what we've decided to do here at the Western Huntsman, and talking with Guy over at Western Contours, is we're going to kind of continue that conversation in terms of panel discussions as we go through the winter and things start slowing down for a lot of hunters out there. But these conversations cannot slow down, and the importance of those topics that we discuss we can't pull the throttle back just yet. So we're going to continue those on. We've got a panel discussion planned for later on in the month of December that I hope you guys tune into, and I want you to send me your thoughts on what we talked about last week, and what you would like to talk about, and what you see as in terms of what would be helpful to us in the future. So send those over to jim@thewesternhuntsman.com. That is jim@thewesternhuntsman.com, and I'll read through those, and that episode will be coming out closer to Christmas. But this week I'm super excited. In fact, I'm so excited. I've got another episode that is up on base, but I am bumping that one back a week because of the importance of the conversation that we're going to have this week. My guest today is Tom Schneider with Stuck in the Rut. And Stuck in the Rut Outdoors. Tom, did I say that right? Stuck in the Rut Outdoors?
It's just Stuck in the Rut.
Just Stuck in the Rut. Okay. Right. Stuck in the Rut is, if you have not been following these guys on Instagram and specifically on YouTube, watching these videos, these guys are awesome. And what I love about them is, like Tom here is practically in North Idaho standards, my neighbor, and I like that. So Tom Schneider from Stuck in the Rut, we're going to be talking about wolf hunting and mule deer hunting, and I appreciate you coming on the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, good. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
I'm like I said before we started recording, I can't figure out why or how we haven't met yet.
I kind of keep myself to myself in the mountains.
Yeah, you and me both. Maybe I've seen your truck parked somewhere, and I'm like, well, I'm moving on, and vice versa.
Yeah, you probably have cut my boot tracks, and I probably cut yours, and we just have never crossed paths at the right time at the right spot. So
Or I'm just not going to the right spots because you're notching a lot more tags than I am, man.
and I do go off the beaten path. I try to get as far away from people as I possibly can. So that is a thing I do.
That's awesome. That's
Yep.
awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Can you let's start with giving us just kind of a bird's eye view of who you are, where you grew up, and the platform of Stuck in the Rut.
Yeah, so we grew up in the North Idaho region, and I think it all started. My dad he's an obsessive, like he loves elk hunting, and he did it long before I was even born. And he had his own business, logging business, this operation, and he was always in the mountains. He'd take his own employees out, and they would do these big hunting trips, and so I was pretty much just forced into it. But like I loved it, and so I wasn't even the age to hunt yet, and my dad was calling an elk in front of me, which was really awesome. So my dad would take us with him, and
Way cool.
yeah, and so I'd watch bulls that he'd call in, and he'd stick with arrows and stuff, and I was picking up sheds. He would take us to his logging jobs, and we'd pick up all the whitetails would pull in his logging job and eat the moss that winter. And then the springtime, he'd bring all of his kids. I was like 8 years old, and we'd be picking up big whitetail sheds. So we got into it really early between the hunting and the shed hunting. Even to this day, all the siblings are obsessed. That's what Stuck N Rut is. It's all the siblings just videoing our hunts and stuff. And that's really where it all started. And then as soon as I got age to hunt, then I was, I just hit the ground running. All of us did. It wasn't until, I'd say pretty much after high school when we got into the filming and editing our own hunts. Before that, we just, we were just notching tags.
Sure.
Just like anybody else. And so.
And how'd that come about? You guys were like, okay, we're notching all these tags. We're having a great time doing this, doing that. Why don't we film it and put it on YouTube? Is that how'd that come about?
So I think when we were growing up and watching this, I felt like at an early age, we became, decent hunters to where we were passing up, whitetail bucks, muleys, looking for a big one to shoot. Well, we would go on the Sportsman channel, at night and watch these videos, and here's full grown man shooting young stuff and calling it huge. And I don't know, or like ranch hunts.
Unlike private property and stuff.
Yeah. You watch these ranch hunts and stuff, and you see these guys that are in their 40s shooting stuff, and they're like calling themselves professionals. Like to us, we couldn't relate to that. We're like, we're out here in public land hunting, this is nothing that we can relate to. And so we just started doing it, started filming, and I had the idea to do YouTube. Like I think at that time I'd say it was about 2010 is when it all started. And, we were starting to get a little bit, some rough footage going on, but we got a good contact with Gunworks, and they were in the, long range. And that's really what got us in was doing the long range stuff. That's about when all the hype was about shooting animals at 800 yards plus. And so they taught us a lot about how to film our hunts and how to, use this longer range equipment versus what we used before, which was like a, fixed scope Leopold 2 to 9 power that can only reach up to 200 yards. And every year it get bumped. And so you had to redial it. We were running night force optics, and that's that you can drop a gun off a cliff and that sucker will still shoot straight. It's just incredible, the equipment that we've had, and then it just from there we just hit the ground running, like I said, and we already had the knowledge and how to hunt animals. We just needed to capture it on video, and just dedicating the camera to the hunt was the biggest learning curve. And there was the one thing that bothered us with the television was television cleaned things up too much. They didn't want to show the kill. And it's just like, well, that's the hunt, the hunt is the kill. Like if an animal runs a little ways and tips over, we want to be able to show that. Yeah. We want to show a real hunt that people can relate to. And I think that's why people have liked us, is it's relatable. Yeah,
it's real. It's not you guys, and forgive me, folks in the Midwest, but it's not some whitetail ranch sitting in, a tree stand or whatever, which I have nothing against that. I do that actually all the time, but I'm not on like some public whitetail ranch or private whitetail ranch, right? And where they have names for all the deer and all this stuff that just doesn't relate to Western hunting. And so I know what you're saying in terms of, and then they'd clean it up and they don't show the struggle that goes into the harvest, and so that's one great thing about YouTube is there's a lot of platforms that now they show all that. They show what it really takes to get a screaming bull elk down, or a wolf, or name your species. And you guys were like kind of pioneers in that, from what I've been watching.
Yeah, we definitely were like that. We kind of were doing both. We did Sportsman Channel and we were doing YouTube as well. But anyone we were bumping into, we started doing, we had a booth at the Spokane show. We had a booth at Salt Lake. We had a booth in Portland, Oregon. And anyone that knew who we were knew us from YouTube, not from television.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So everyone was, and a lot of it had to do too, was that first wolf in 2011. When that first wolf season came up, I'm like, I got to get a wolf, and I got it on video. And a lot of people knew that video. A lot of people watched that video and they were very familiar with it. And so then we just realized, we just need to stick to YouTube. That's the future.
Yeah.
And so that's what we went that route. And yeah, I say we were the pioneers. I mean, now there's a lot of other people that are doing YouTube, and I'm all for helping people out. If somebody contacts me and says, hey, I want to do that. And it's like, yeah, like pick up a camera and do it. It's a great, and if anything, just capture the video so that you have something to show to your grandkids, and it's, there's a lot of the experiences. I look at all the old timers that I look up to just here, that I grew up with. And they have all these stories and stuff, but there's a lot of, they don't have photos. They don't have videos to show for it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I think it's really neat to be able to capture this on video, and I can show this to my kids, someday or even my grandkids, like, look, that was me,
Mm-hmm. No, you make a really good point, man. And, cause I sell like the Tacticam equipment on our website or whatever. And that's one of the things I talk about. Like, I'm not some big YouTuber. I don't make videos. I don't know how. I've tried, and one day maybe I'll make it happen. But I'm kind of in that. I'm 41 years old now, and I'm in that group that you were talking about. The biggest mule deer I've ever shot, I don't even have a picture of it.
Oh yeah.
And so some of the bigger bucks I've shot in my life, I don't have pictures of it, and I'm not. It's not about me wanting to share them on like social media so much as it'd be nice to have that memory, because like my 10 and 12-year-old, my two daughters, they got their first buck this year. And, it'd be cool if I could take them down my memory lane and show them, here's my first buck. And here's, here's what we did, and kind of just share that moment with them. And so the memories made are memories kept when you get it on film. And so I think that's a super valid point, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely exactly what happened here too. I mean, I have a lot of sheds that I love shed hunting a lot. And one of the most exciting things of a shed is like where it lays, like where a big
where you find
shed.
It.
Yeah, where you find it. And I used to never take photos of that. And now I do, but it's like some of those big ones, it'd just be sweet to just see that photo.
Yeah.
Where you found it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've never been into shed hunting, man. I need to try it out.
Yeah, I think we've had the best of both worlds. Well, everyone else was like, especially in high school, and everyone else was doing football and basketball.
Mm-hmm.
We were all just full on in the hunting, like.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah.
I literally quit football season my junior year of high school. My coach was pissed, but I quit because it cut into my mule deer season.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he just didn't understand. Like, I loved playing football, but I loved hunting more. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped, and I know I'll probably catch some gruff over that, who quits football, but I did. I did, especially when I got my driver's license.
Right.
So how many brothers and sisters are there?
So there's me, my older brother, Travis, and we do most of the filming. Like, we just take turns filming. One's the hunter, he films, vice versa. My younger brother, Trevor, then my sister, Tana, who married Adam, who was an Alaskan bush pilot. And so her and Adam live in Alaska. So if you're seeing videos of Idaho and Alaska, we're bouncing back and forth hunting both states a lot. Taking advantage of the beautiful country, or the beautiful state of Alaska. We just got back from Kodiak, actually just recently, pulled off a few mountain goats, some blacktails, and some foxes. So that's going to be a fun episode to share.
Dude, I'm jealous. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I kind of figured that's how it came together with your sister Tana up there in Alaska, and I've watched some of those videos, and mostly I've watched your wolf videos, which is going to be kind of the foundational discussion of this episode. And that is where, I mean, let's just get right to it, man. You came out with a wolf hunting class, which is lacking. And I want to start this discussion off with talking about why hunting wolves, and like how did you get into it, and why were you interested in hunting wolves, and then you get proficient at it, right? And then decide to share this knowledge and this information with other people.
Yeah. So, I mean, it honestly all started, I could say, it had to be around 2005 or 2006. We had an area that was just like a bomb spot for muleys. Like, we pulled some big muley bucks up there. My older brother and I, we would hit it as hard as we could. Any weekend we had school off, just, we try to we were those kids that like to take school off to go hunt. But this one spot in particular, this was like our muley spot. We pulled big bucks out of here. And we'd get on this ridge top, glass this big draw. You have lots of good shooting lanes. We'd usually see, you would honestly, if you spent a full day in there on a good day, you could see close to 5 to 10 muley bucks.
Nice. And this is like, well, never mind. I'm not going to ask you what unit. I'm just, because you're so close to me, I want to talk about it, but.
Yeah. Wink, wink, nod, nod, right?
Yeah.
So this is an area that we were just really passionate about hunting. But then it's just one day we just noticed something was off. We just didn't see a single deer. We were seeing tracks, but just nothing. And it was just dead all day. And it just really bothered us. We're like, what?
About what year was that?
It was around 2005, 2006.
Okay.
It was about that time.
So pretty quick turnaround. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so my brother had the idea. I mean, we're just a bunch of high school kids, and we were just like, you know what? If I shoot that rock over there, maybe it could flush something out, out of the brush. And so my brother shot, and this big black wolf just runs right down the mountain, right in front of us. And we're looking at this thing at it's like 400 yards running down the hill, and I could see this thing with the naked eye, tail and all. And I'm like, and that was the surreal moment of like the size of a wolf. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I've never seen a dog that big in my entire life. And it just barreled down the mountain, just steep cliff. I mean, just ran straight down. I was like, what is that thing? We're like, like deer, coyote, wolf. we had no clue. There's just a big black wolf just ran straight down. And honestly, that area was never the same. We would go back in that area where we would see 5 to 6 bucks every day. You would see a buck like every other time you go in there. And before you know it, that area it just wasn't good anymore. And we'd go in the wintering range, so shed hunt, there was some moose that would winter in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the wolves were just zigzagging those clear cuts where we used to see moose. We counted close, I think it was like 15 or 16 bull moose in that clear cut one winter. That's where they would shed every winter. But the wolves would just zigzag that clear cut, and they were just, once a week they were taking down a moose. But imagine that, if you got 15 moose in a clear cut living in there, I mean, that disappears pretty quick.
Oh,
man.
You
got a wolf pack taking one moose at a time.
Yeah.
But before you know it, that area just became a complete dead zone. And so for us, we're pretty adaptable type people. So we would just bump to the next drainage. And then we'd be back in elk and mule deer hunting that. And the same thing would happen. All of a sudden, a wolf pack would move in, and it didn't take much time, and all of a sudden it was a dead zone, and it worked almost like a plague. And I'm not meaning to say it like that, but I'm not exaggerating. It really was like a plague where we had areas that just, like I won't go back to there to this day. Like I'll still every so often, it's like, well, this was a good spot at one time. Go back there. You might see one or two deer, just nothing. The wolves just run it so hard. And so I think that's really where that's where everything's just started opening up to us. Like our minds were blown, but the thing was even more weird was people weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a key point, man.
And yeah, like, so the wildlife biologists weren't even studying this area. They were studying the areas down south. We were saying that we have some problems up here. They didn't believe us. And it just all of a sudden just disappeared. And then after the fact, they scratched their head, and then they started putting collars on some deer and elk up here just to see what's going on. But the damage was already done. And I think it just got to a point where I think we just had enough. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all had to go through this learning curve. 2011, they first opened the wolf season. I was just sure, I'm like, I got to go out there and kill a wolf, and it was one of my favorite spots that I grew up hunting. I went in there, killed a wolf, the first year.
And that was back when you can only get like what, 1 or 2 tags?
You're only allowed 2 tags.
Yeah.
I shot one, and a big black one got away from me. And man, they were just, the wolves were just so overpopulated at that time. You would, every day I'd open that pickup door, you'd hear howling. You just walk, like if you're a deer elk hunting, you just walk past the howling to go deer and elk hunting. And now I regret doing that. I'm like, man, I should have just been chasing those packs. But I mean, you only have a couple tags. You're
sure.
So
like how big of an impact are you really making? And I guess that's the one thing I like talking to guys like you that have seen the evolution of the landscape since wolf reintroduction in, I believe, 1996. Mm-hmm. And and I want to set this up for any of the new listeners that haven't heard any of our previous wolf discussions on this show. What we're talking about when we're talking about the evolution of this thing, and what Tom is saying as to what his hunting areas were like prior to the wolves being introduced back onto the land, and then how that affected the hunting of ungulate species and all this stuff. We've got lots of episodes dedicated to that exact topic, so go back and listen to them. But basically, the wolves were reintroduced in 1996. The state of Idaho had basically set up a management program that stated that we can manage for in the entire state of Idaho, we can manage for 300 to 500 wolves. We are north of 1,500 wolves to this day, which is 3 times as many as the maximum amount the Idaho Fish and Game said that the state of Idaho can essentially manage for. This takes a real toll on our ungulate populations, and in fact, we're talking about mule deer and what they've done to mule deer. A lot of people think it's a whitetail that have moved in that have devastated our mule deer populations in the panhandle of Idaho. It's not. It's really not. It's the wolves that have taken the toll on our mule deer, because they love mule deer, right? And they're let's face it, they're a little easier to catch for a wolf than a whitetail. Maybe I'm off base with that. Would you agree with that or disagree, Tom?
No, I agree. And it's a lot of it's in the wintertime. So what happens is these big muley bucks, they don't pull down off the mountain like an elk and a moose will. They like to stay up, and they'll find this little pocket of timber, and they're sitting ducks up there. When I pick up their sheds, they stand around because they're exhausted. Yep. They're not moving. And I'll go up there, and I literally, so here's another story I got for you. It was, I'm trying to get my dates right, but I didn't have this all documented at the time, but it was about 2008. It was one of my shed hunting spots. I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. There's a brush field that had close to 100 muleys, does, mm-hmm. bucks. It was just a very loaded area. It was pretty cool to go out in the spring because everything pulled in that brush field, but it was just muley butts every time I go in there and shed hunt. And there's just a couple other shed hunters that go in there. But this one year I hit it. It was around 2008, and it wasn't a bad winter, it was just a carcass, like carcasses all over in there. And I was finding them new ones. Every time I go shed hunting there, I'm like, what is going on? Like, I couldn't figure it out. And I just saw them, like they were just getting but you could see the evidence of a canine where the bones would be cracked up and stuff. And, and be ripped limb to limb. But some of them are not even they weren't even fully eaten. Like there was just muleys that were dead and there'd be a leg gone, but there would be the rest of the body. And then, like then I didn't know what was going on. I was clueless on why these muleys were getting killed. But then other shed hunters were knowing this as well, as every time a wolf pack would move in their area, that was exactly what was happening too. Because the muleys are literally sitting ducks. These whitetails and elk, I'm going to say elk and whitetails, they just pull right off the mountain after you get a fair amount of snow. Like they come off the mountain, they head to the valley.
Yep.
And those muleys, they stay in that deep snow. And when a wolf pack comes in, I mean, they are sitting ducks, and those wolves won't leave those muleys. They'll just zigzag them and just wipe them out. But the thing is, the only people that witnessed it wasn't wildlife biologists. There wasn't people out there studying them. The only people that were out there were shed hunters like me that were witnessing this.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I didn't have social media back then. I didn't know, like, there's no way to share this information. There was no iPhones to take photos of this stuff. I never even carried a camera. So I never got to show the damage that was done back then. You know what I mean? And yeah, and it wasn't like a gradual decline. It was like 2 years. It was like there was 100 muleys in that area, and now there's 3.
See, I've heard that a few times where it was like, okay, the wolves were here, but you don't notice anything, and then it was like this sudden shift where it's like the wolf population hit a certain number, and all of a sudden it's chaos.
Yeah, and it was just and it's not the same. Like, but a lot of it, I think the biggest problem was we just were not managing them right. We should have been managing them back then. And they should have been off the endangered species list, but they weren't. You know about it. I won't get into it.
Yeah.
The whole fight. But finally they let us manage them in 2011. And then you got hunters like me, you got trappers, people wanting to get into trapping, but we don't know what the heck we're doing. It was a big learning curve for all of us.
Yep.
But honestly, I was hooked to wolf hunt after I shot that first one. It was rather addicting, and it was almost like the same feeling, when you call in a bull elk, and it's bugling. It was like that with wolves, like calling in wolves. It's adrenaline rush.
It is. It's super creepy, man. That there's something super eerie about their howl and when they come in. I don't know. Anyway, you've got a lot more experience than I do with it, dude. That's
why it's so addicting. It's a little, I'll say it, it's a little high. Like you get a little,
for sure.
You don't just get the adrenaline rush, but you get it's almost like I don't know if it's like skydiving or something, and it's like fun, but fear at the same time. That's kind of like what wolf hunting is. There's a little bit of fear involved. But like I said, it was the biggest learning curve, but I dedicated a lot of time, especially when we were doing the videos. The great thing with what we did, we were entrepreneurs. So we, with building houses, logging, we got this, control our own schedule. So we just busted our butt all summer long, made as much money as we possibly could. And we would just take off all 3-4 months out in the fall and just hunt animals. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I filled my elk tag or my deer tag early, I was wolf hunting. And like I said, it was the biggest learning curve. I spent thousands upon thousands of dollars driving around. I spent lots of days off work just to learn wolf habits, and talking to, a lot of Canadians, that have had experience wolf hunting. I'd pull a little bit of information from there, a couple wolf hunters in Idaho that would learn a couple tips. And I would, you learn from a couple other people, but at the same time, there was a lot that I had to learn on my own. And I'd say it was about 2014, 2015, I was actually catching on to it, where all of a sudden it was just like clockwork, where every time I was getting in the wolves, I knew how to find them and I knew how to kill them. And then all of a sudden it's just like, all right, I got a rhythm going here. And that's where it really started taking off, and just learning and understanding how these canines really work. And yeah, I'm starting to see areas rebound, which is an amazing thing
Me
to
too.
say. Like,
Me too.
that's great. And so like
And it's not because of what I'm doing, man. It's because of people like you and our trappers out there that are doing that. You know, you got like Justin Webb and Jacob Denham out there just smoking wolves left and right, and you're out there, and well, we're gonna get to this, so I don't want to get too far into this, but it is super interesting when I talk to people that have been here for a long time and seen this evolutionary process and the way you guys interpret the changes over the years, because it's so noticeable for a guy like me who I've spent half my life growing up in you know, the state of Utah, a different western state where there really wasn't a predator problem at all, versus the other half of my life spent in the state of Idaho. And to see, you know, evolutionary wise, what has changed on the landscape, how the elk behave, how the deer behave, and how they move and how they vocalize, in my opinion, is a little different. The elk aren't, in my opinion, they're just not quite as rowdy as they were 15 years ago. They're still rowdy, so I don't want anybody to take me wrong. You can still call in elk, but it just there's differences, and I talk to guys like you and like you know, my buddy Dirk, the WD Bugler Durham, you know, he grew up in kind of this North Idaho area as well, and kind of his perspective as to how the landscape changed, and to see how all this kind of comes together to where we're at now today in the year 2021. It's interesting, man. It's interesting how many people have been asleep at the wheel too.
Yeah, and the people that are asleep at the wheel are the ones, I mean, that honestly don't really put in the time in the mountains. Like, there's a lot of, and you know, these are good people, like the people that hunt in the valley. They'll hunt whitetails down here in the, you know, in the valley close to houses and stuff.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
see the wolf problems. That there's always those local deer and elk that don't go back up the mountains, and so those are the ones they typically hunt. Well, they'll always say, I don't see a wolf problem. You know, it's like, well, you got to go up in the mountains to see. You know what I mean? You can't, like, down here, you're not going to see it.
No.
You're going to see it up in the mountains. And, you know, for us, you know, you probably remember some of the Stuck N The Rut videos. We used to take horses and mules in the backcountry. Mm-hmm. The farther you got away from people, the more wildlife you see. It's mm-hmm. actually kind of changed now. Now it's the opposite. We're finding most of the wildlife actually closer to human activity because they feel safer. And you'll actually notice this also in some of these national parks where there's wolves. Same ordeal. The thing is that animals don't get shot, so you got these you got all the animals are hugging the highways. Like, if you're like, I love Canada and I'll drive up there and stuff, and there's this I don't know if you've ever been up to Jasper or Banff up there. It's really pretty up there, but I've watched some wolves do some crazy stuff up there. I watched a wolf pack completely there's a bunch of shut out bull elk just chilling in the river, and the wolf pack wouldn't let them leave the river. And they just sat there waiting for them, and the elk were just gonna stand in the river just
indefinitely.
The wolves are just gonna wait them out. And the other thing I saw was a mule deer wolf was dragging across the ice. That was pretty interesting. But a lot of those elk are hugged to the highway. They're sitting right there, and they don't want to go out there. And if you go a little bit, you know, past off the beaten path, all of a sudden you'll see these wolves just circling. It's pretty eerie because, I mean, they're not being managed out there. You know what I mean? It's a national park.
Sure.
So it's a park, so they're not shooting those wolves or anything. And those animals are just, you know, fighting for their life and living in the city. And, you know, they're always trying to push them out of the city, you know, the herds of elk and stuff. But I mean, that's the same thing we're seeing here now. We're seeing the same thing here, mm-hmm. where you're not seeing the animals in the backcountry. My brother and I packed in this year 13 miles, and we saw a tiny little herd of elk. And it's like, we're chasing a 280 class bull elk back there. It's like, what are we doing? Like, this far back chasing a 280 class bull elk? Like, this is not it's just the
They
one little
should
herd.
be bigger, yeah, and vice versa. Like in July, you're seeing elk on the agricultural interface, down here in the valleys, when they should be back in the backcountry at that point, and they don't. They don't leave anymore. A lot of them just stay in these farmers' fields, hassle them all year because they know that there's no wolves.
It's kind of a lose-lose situations, because then now the farmers get issues, and then now they hand depredation tags. So now
exactly.
So then the elk have nowhere to go. They're sitting ducks, and unfortunately, but yeah, there's some areas where the trappers and hunters are just doing so well that, like, I'm seeing muleys coming back. I'm seeing elk coming back. I actually killed my biggest bull elk this year, in an area. Actually, believe it or not, I remember I was telling you about that wolf in 2006 ish, around that time.
Where you saw the black wolf.
Wolf.
Yeah.
I killed my biggest bull elk in there this year, and so that area is starting to come back.
I've noticed it on I guess a super broad level where I guess, and this is coming from a guy who's never shot a wolf. So I've tried and I feel like you're going to help me get there because you got something coming down the pike here. So we're going to talk about that, but I've noticed that too. The work that the hunters and trappers are putting into it is paying dividends. And what I mean by that is, I'm having more elk encounters the last 2 years than I have previously. I'm seeing more mule deer like you are. I'm seeing mule deer in places I've never seen mule deer before. However, we're not there yet. We're not back to what it used to be, and we're not. In my opinion, we're still not where we need to be in terms of a balanced, ecological system or whatever. I'm not a scientist, but there still needs to be this balance, and we're getting close, but we're not quite there yet.
No, we're not.
We're getting to the point where we're getting people that are more interested. They're seeing the problem. They're seeing the effects, the negative impacts of wolves, and nobody on my show, that I've had people from Dr. Valerius Geist to other biologists and lifetime, these wildlife scientists that know this information a lot better than I do. I've had these people on the show, and we've talked about this. And they're in agreement that things have gotten a little bit out of control with these predators. I think I kind of got sidetracked there. The point is people are actually noticing that these wolves are where nobody sees the reality of having them fully eliminated, because it's just not reality. The whole shoot, shovel, shut up thing and eliminating wolves 100% off the landscape, it's just not reality. So we need to get past that and move on and figure out the appropriate management tool, which is hunting and trapping. And it's starting to become effective, but there's a lot of hunters that go out and they try, and it's frustrating. They don't see anything, they don't hear anything, and they're frustrated, which leads me to you, Tom. You've developed this process. You've developed a way to achieve hunting success on these. In my opinion, I think that wolves in the lower 48 are probably the most difficult and the most cunning animal that we can hunt.
I will say they're the most intelligent animal you'll ever hunt. I don't care. There's nobody that can argue that.
Yeah.
If somebody thinks there's another animal out there that's harder to hunt, that you have to hunt a wolf to really figure that, because they are the most intelligent. They're one of those animals. They're always a step ahead of you.
Yeah.
And so my techniques that I've learned is how to get one step ahead of them, catching them off guard. Like, have you ever seen a dog that's confused and concerned when it turns its head? It's like, huh?
Yeah.
That's the look I get when a wolf pack comes in at me. They're just like, wait,
what?
What? Boom, boom, boom. That's the look I want.
And the numbers. Oh, go ahead. I cut you off there. Sorry, man.
No, you go.
The numbers prove what we're talking about. There's a less than 1% success ratio when it comes to wolf hunting. Wolf trapping has a higher percentage ratio. But I want people to look at it from this perspective. On this show, we talk a lot about elk hunting in September. September elk hunting, archery elk hunting is going to equate to about a 7 to 10% success rate, right? And what's funny is if you take that number, it's like the 1% of that 10% success rate are the same people every year notching tags, right? So it's even lower than that if you think about it. So when you look at it from that standard, and there's all these elk being killed that way, but it's still proportionally very low as to the number of people that are out there trying to do it, wolf hunting is like times almost 10 in terms of low success rates. And that's what I'm hoping the course that you are about to talk about it could possibly change those numbers for a lot of us out there that don't, like for me, I'd love to trap wolves because I know it's a higher success rate, right? But I don't have the time, man. I can't go check traps every 72 hours. I don't even have a snowmobile, which I'd get one, but again, I don't have time to go out and check a trap line all the time. I don't have the resources. I don't have the know-how. And so coming from a guy who grew up, part of the way I paid my way through high school was killing coyotes, and I'd call coyotes in and I'd kill them, and I'd take them in for a bounty. And that would be my gas money for like a month. And the farmers would also pitch in and pay me to get rid of the coyotes on some of their land. But that what I've realized is the way I hunted coyotes does not translate to successful wolf hunting. And so where does a guy in my circumstance, how do we get better? And let's talk about your course, man, and how this is going to change the course of wolf hunting, no pun intended.
Yeah. So I created this course right when there came to a point where I was like, I know what I'm doing now, like I even
for sure.
And this is actually pretty neat. I put this one in the course, this video I haven't launched on YouTube yet, but when I decided I'm going to do a wolf course, people need to get out there. The thing is, people were asking the wrong questions. They saw that I was killing wolves. They were asking the wrong questions.
Can you elaborate on that? What were the wrong questions they were asking?
What call did you use? I want to use that call. That call doesn't work, and you don't just use that call with any wolf. It has to be the specific scenario you're in. Wolves are a very intelligent animal, and it has to make sense to them and why they're going to come in. You know what I mean? And I'll just use the example of a wolf pup in distress call. Everybody's like, oh, you killed that wolf pup in distress? I'm just going to run up in the mountains and just run that wolf pup in distress call that I got on my Fox Pro. It's not going to work like that. It's not going to make sense to the wolf pack.
Okay, you just said something. Does a Fox Pro even work on wolves?
It can.
It can. Okay.
It can. But
just curious. Sorry, I got you off. I got you off topic there, man.
But this is the thing with wolves and electronic calls is after they remember recordings. And so if you have the same recording on the same pack and you're trying a second attempt, they won't come back to it again. And so wolves they figure that out really quick. And so usually after a couple attempts on a wolf pack, I have to start moving to mouth calls and hunting them. But no, I mean, there's a lot of different calls that I use. And I actually, in the course, I go through several different techniques and scenarios of like, this is the time I'll use this call if this happens. I'll use this call if that happens. I share pretty much the kind of I'll say the secret formula and how I would prefer the whole scenario to go down if I locate a wolf pack and I kill them. I also even just talk about how to find wolves in general. That's actually the hardest part in wolf hunting is just finding the pack.
For sure, man. That's a huge topic with any type of hunting. I think that for me, what I do, that's the biggest question I get. How do I find elk? How do I find deer? How do I find a whitetail? How do I find mule deer? Even coyotes. Coyotes are super easy to find, by the way, folks. But wolves, I can't answer that question. And that's what's in your course, right?
Yes. I teach you how to do that in the wintertime. I teach you how to do that in the spring, the summer, the early fall, all the way to the winter. I teach you how to do it throughout the entire year, and how to find them, and how I would hunt them based on the things I see. I teach you how to be observant, what to see, what to expect. When is it a waste of time? You know, if you see a single wolf track, is it a waste of time to try to pursue that wolf track, or is it productive? It depends on what that wolf is doing. There's a lot of different scenarios that go on. And that's the thing I just realized, was people were just aimlessly going up in the mountains and wising up wolves. And it was actually, in a sense, doing more harm than good. And so for me, I want effective wolf hunters out in the woods with me. I'll share the woods with everybody. I want these wolves managed just like everybody else. But when someone doesn't know what they're doing, and like I said, you know, they use I'm just going to use this call because he used that call when he killed wolves, and they don't use it in the right scenario, that wolf pack's wised up. I won't have a chance of calling that wolf anymore. You won't have a chance of calling that wolf anymore. Now the only way to do it is get lucky and trap him, you know?
Okay, that's a great point, Tom. And the reason I talk about that is, I don't know how familiar you are with my show, but we do this School of September series, right? And it's all about elk hunting and whatnot. And one of the most effective things that I ask people is, what are some of the biggest mistakes people do that mess up their elk hunt? And that translates, and I think that what that does is that makes the discussion go in a direction that people wouldn't normally go in, because we're trying to talk about, okay, you want to go out and you want to find elk, you want to bugle like this, you want to go to this area, blah, blah, blah. But when you're talking about mistakes that are made, that opens some new doors and helps some light bulbs go off. And so when I told you, like, I can take a coyote call, I could take some kind of, you know, I don't care if it's a rabbit in distress, whatever. I can go out where I know coyotes are, and I can always call those in, right? And I have a ball doing it. That is what people have been trying, including me. I'm guilty of this. In fact, the only wolf response I ever got was when I was elk hunting, and I used a cow call once, and they howled at me. But I've never successfully called a wolf in. And that would be my, I guess, dumb assumption, because I'm not experienced with wolf hunting. I don't know what kind of calls to use. Is I would think that I'll go get in the pickup truck and I'll go find a place where I think there's going to be some wolves, or I've seen wolves or sign or whatever, and try to call them in with whatever generic call I might have. How is that? Can you expand on what you were talking about, in terms of using these calls and knowing what types of calls to use in the right types of scenarios? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, you have to think of what's the wolf doing right now? Is the pack together? Are they just hanging out during the day? Are they currently hunting? And so you have to think of what scenarios, like what's going to bring that wolf pack in. And so you're probably, as a coyote hunter and other coyote hunters, I mean, there's calls that wolves will respond to those, but it has to make sense. You know, like, and I guess the best example is, like I said, that the wolf pup in distress. If there's a wolf pack together and they start hearing a random wolf pup, they're like, that doesn't make sense.
Not our kid, not our problem.
That's not our kid. First of all, it's not our kid, and we're the only wolf pack in this territory.
Yeah.
So why would I come in?
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so that's one of the examples, like, I use it, and I like using that call, but it has to be in a particular scenario. And so that's one of the things I explain when to use that call. I use, when it comes to using howls, different vocals. Wolves have a large range of vocals, from barkings to yips to howling. What do those all mean? Also, understanding what the wolves are saying. So if you hear a wolf pack howling, understanding what that howl means. Like, Are they, like, do they know you're there? Sometimes if they know you're there and they're trying to get out of the country, there's certain howls they do that are pretty much warning the pack. There's other howls that are if they think you're another wolf trying to take over their territory, there's certain howls they do and trying to chase you out. There's a lot of different vocals they use. And the thing is, when I first got into this, there's no information on this. Hardly any information.
Exactly, man. I scoured the internet for this kind of info. I thought, there's got to be some dudes up in Alaska that are really good at calling in wolves, and put it on the internet or something. There wasn't. And so that's why I was stoked when I saw your post that you've got this course. First of all, what is the name of your course?
It's the Wolf Hunting Master Class. I try to make it as simple as possible so people can find it.
Okay, Wolf Hunting Master Class, and where can people find it?
wolfhuntingmasterclass.com.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got that, and guys, I'm going to put that in the show notes, by the way. And so that's where I wanted to start. Foundationally, what we're talking about, guys, is the Stuck in the Rut Wolf Hunting Master Class by Tom Schneider. And I was super pumped when I saw you posted. In fact, you posted it on one of the Facebook groups that I made or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I saw that and I was like, man, you got to be kidding me! I've been waiting for this like my whole adult life. And so that's what we're kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of, guys. The calls, or going back to something you said, the vocalizations and like what one howl sounds like versus what another howl sounds like. He's warning the pack that there's danger versus he's trying to scare another wolf or an intruder into his territory off. Are there examples in your course as to what those sound like or how people can learn how to identify that?
Yeah, I show actually howls that I've experienced, and I actually share the exact vocals so that you can hear it and understand what that means, And so, yeah, I share those examples, and so that and sometimes they're just howling with each other too. I've had it where the alpha male is a very, man, the dynamic of a pack is actually pretty incredible, but he pretty much controls the howl frenzy, and he can shut it off with a bark.
So he'll just kind of yip or bark or whatever, and it shuts the entire pack down.
Mm-hmm. And I've even heard it where if a young one's still howling and he didn't listen, all of a sudden you'll hear that young one start yipping right after. he gets a little
like he's back talking kind of thing.
Well, he's just howling, and the alpha male's like shut up, like told the pack to shut up. And he's, the young one didn't really get the message. He's still howling, thinking the frenzy's still going on. All of a sudden, you'll just start hearing that young one just start, where the alpha male will nip at him and tell him to shut up. Like,
can I ask you something on that?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is just kind of scenario driven, man. Right. And again, coming from somebody who doesn't know shit about shit. Mm-hmm. I was elk hunting. And I let off some cow calls, and in front of me, approximately 80 to 100 yards, these two wolves that were they were probably 30 yards apart, mm-hmm. do these weird, creepy sounding howls back to me. And they're like, it's like they're talking to, in the way I perceived it. And this is what I want to ask you is how off and how terrible is my perception? But my perception is like the one was telling the other one, did you hear that? And the other one's like, yeah, I heard it. Let's go. And then 10 seconds later, this older, further, you could just, how when you've been in the woods long enough, you could just tell the sound of an animal is more mature than another, right? Mm-hmm. You just kind of can, I don't know how to explain that. I could just tell this other one was more mature, let off this really weird, it wasn't a howl, it was like a moan. Mm-hmm. And it was like dark timber, and it was just real, like the hair on the back of my neck stood up when this happened. But I was still super excited about hearing the first two. I had my bow, and I had my 45 ACP. I was going to lace some wolves, man. It was like 2013, 2014, and I had a wolf tag in my pocket. So I was all excited. Well, when that older, wiser one kind of did that moany sound, they disappeared, like aliens came down and abducted them off the face of the earth. No idea where they went. Can you like interpret that for me and tell me what I heard, or I don't know how to even ask that question.
Did they win you at all? Perhaps, maybe or maybe not.
No, they did not win me. It was kind of midday. Thermals were going up, and I was above them.
Usually that this happened to us actually quite a bit. A lot of different scenarios where the alpha male will do that howl, and he calls the pack back together. But usually he does that when he knows something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So 2011, I'll go back then. I shot that one, and this is when I was still getting in the learning curve. The following day, my sister set up, and we have this young one. Like we're howling it in, and it's coming in fast. Like young one howling, and it's just getting closer and closer and closer. Just like a bull elk is coming in. My sister's just shaking. She's like, "Oh my gosh, like this is happening." All of a sudden, that same moan you're talking about, he howled way back there, called it back.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it was almost just like he recognized that call from the day before. It was the same electronic wolf howl, and so.
And that wise old bugger knew it was.
He knew,
yeah.
And so we called them back, and they all just swarmed back up, and never. I mean, he was within. It was getting close, like. You know what I mean? Like he was right there, and the wind was good. And that alpha male, he was probably about 400 or 500 yards back. He did a big old howl, called the pack back. And it could have been maybe he recognized your cow elk read, like where he's just like, hey, is there other elk hunters in the area perhaps using the same Primo's read or what have you?
Yeah, it probably was back in the day. I think it was a Rocky Mountain elk. Or Rocky Mountain hunting call. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the real trendy ones from back then. Long before, audience, be advised, long before I became a dedicated diehard Phelps Game Calls fan.
Yeah,
so I got to throw that in there, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, very well. It just maybe they've already dealt with a couple other archery hunters where they accidentally came in onto some other archery hunters while they're elk hunting,
and so
they just put the call together.
Do you think that like the wise older wolf has got enough experience that he's like recognizing that what you're talking about? Okay, I heard that kind of read, a couple days before or whatever, and the young ones just don't have that experience, so they're not putting it together and they're just getting overly excited.
Yeah, exactly.
So, tell us a little bit about for the folks listening to this podcast. What are they going to get out of this course? Because I don't want to call it the elevator pitch or a sales pitch or anything like that, but I do want you to qualify it because it's kind of an expensive course, right?
It is.
And that's okay. That's okay if I think people have, the value, they have this perceived value they're going to get out of it. Can you kind of talk about what you would expect somebody that goes through this course to be able to go out in the woods and do?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, one really good wolf hunter is going to be better than 10 amateurs.
Totally agree.
He's going to be way better. I mean, you look at it with trappers and hunters. Like for me, like I'm the exception, right? I can pull out several wolves every single year. You got the other guy who's the 1%. He can't get it done. But to me, who's going to make that? Who's going to make that really good hunter? Someone who's dedicated enough, who's going to invest their money and their time into the course. I think it comes to a point where I had to talk to other wolf hunters and trappers, ask them, like, I showed them what course I got going on. And I'm like, what do you value this course at? And I've already put in thousands and thousands of dollars in fuel and time taken off work and putting this course together. Not just that, but putting in my time in wolf hunting. I'm actually saving people a lot of money with just all that information. Is a lot of time and money saved in the long run. And one wolf will pay for the course if you kill one wolf. And so it just depends how, for me, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for elite hunters in some way, if that makes sense.
Tom, you cut out there. I don't think it cut out on the recording because it was showing fine on my program here, but I missed what you said there. One wolf is going to pay for basically like the tuition or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, and this is kind of where you cut out. Are you talking about like the reimbursement from Foundation for Wildlife Management kind of thing?
That, or if you get a good wolf, I mean, I sell my skulls between $100 to $200 for a good wolf.
Oh, skull. Wow. I didn't know the skulls were worth that much. I knew the hides are pricey.
Yeah, I didn't know the skulls were that much either, but I keep on getting people messaging me, I want a skull. Okay. Mm-hmm. And even the taxidermists, and the taxidermists, they have their own, business, and they want to make a little extra money too. So, they'll take it for about $50 or so, but you got that, and then you got the fur. If you got a good fur, that pays for the course right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's, to me, if you're not willing to do the course, you're not confident enough that you can take down a wolf. But I mean, for me, that's kind of what I'm looking for. For me, it's not, even if I don't get rich on this course, that's not my goal here. I want to create good wolf hunters, ones that are not, like I said, not going to neglect the information I'm giving them. This is going to give you a strong foundation. You're going to, all this information is a decade worth of knowledge that I have received wolf hunting. And you're going to, honestly, it's going to create a good foundation for you.
Well, here we are, and it's already almost Christmas time, and you might be buying for that hunter in your life, or you're buying for yourself. Let's start with the westernhuntsman.com. If you go there and check out the gear tab, we've got all the Tacticam equipment. So if you know or you are interested in filming your hunt, jump on the westernhuntsman.com/gear and check out the Tacticam products, from the cameras to the reveal cell cams to everything else and all the attachments. It's all there. You can also check out the merchandise tab and get you a cool t-shirt or a coffee mug or something like that. And when you do make a purchase on the westernhuntsman.com, a portion of that proceed goes towards the fight against anti-hunters. Moving on, I want to talk to you about Scree gear. Scree is extreme mountain gear built for the wild. It's a great company with great gear that's not going to break the bank. Some of my favorite Scree items are the Hard Scrabble pants. The Hard Scrabble vest is super versatile. Get your complete layering system to the Kodiak pants, and I love the Bridger glassing mitt, so keep your hands warm when you're out there glassing the mountain, doing your thing. So check it out at screegear.com, and don't forget to use the promo code The Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping. Man, that's a great deal. Check it out, screegear.com. Let's talk about Phelps Game Calls, the oldest sponsor on the Western Huntsman podcast. Phelps Game Calls has a full lineup of elk calls, predator calls, deer calls, duck calls, anything you need call-wise. Check it out at phelpsgamecalls.com. Phelps is a true American story built from the blood and sweat and tears of Jason Phelps himself, from his garage to what it is now, one of the premier call companies out there on the market. I love these guys. It's a great company, great products, all backed by great warranties. Check it out at phelpsgamecalls.com, and don't forget to use promo code Huntsman10 for 10% off. Last but not least, check out Hoffman Boots. Hoffman Boots are my go-to boot. They have been for many, many years. I love this company. They are built right here in North Idaho. And if you are in the market for a new set of mountain boots, hunting boots, you need to check them out. I love my Explorers. You can get the Explorers in the 8-inch, the 6-inch. You can get the Summits. That's another great boot. Personally, I haven't tried them, but I can attest that if they're anything as good as the Explorers, you will not be disappointed. So go to hoffmanboots.com and check it out. Use promo code, all caps lock, by the way, Huntsman10. Huntsman10 for 10% off on your next Hoffman Boots purchase. Guys, that's it for sponsors. I sure appreciate you guys tuning into the show. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram and leave us a review if you wouldn't mind. It goes a long way to help the show. Let's get back into it. Here we go. Let's be honest, Tom. That's what we're lacking, man. And I don't mean to cut you off, but this is an important point. This is what we are lacking in Idaho, in Montana, in Wyoming. And soon to be Colorado, when after your 10-year, decade-long struggle in the courts, and finally the wolves are going to be allowed to be, you're going to be able to get tags for them. Mm-hmm. Not to get on the politics side of things, but right. This is what we're lacking, a foundational thing. If you look at Alaska, they've always been able to hunt and trap wolves. So these folks had this foundational understanding. Just like as an Idahoan, I'm going to use Idaho as an example here because that's where you and I live. As a foundational thing, we understand how to basically pursue elk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's
Exactly.
ever taught us. We didn't grow up hunting wolves, you and I. Yeah. Nobody's ever taught us this. We didn't have these foundational practices that are the things that if somebody were to come up to you and you're like this prolific elk hunter in the state of Idaho, and they're going to come up to you and be like, hey, I just moved here from I don't know, somewhere New York, and I don't know anything about elk, but I want to go hunt elk. The foundational things are the things that you wouldn't think to tell this individual to be successful in the woods. And that's what you're getting at with this course is you're going to provide these foundational skills and knowledge set that people have never been taught. And what we do, like I stopped hunting wolves a couple of years ago because I felt like I was doing more damage than I was good. And I want to change that because I'd be a dedicated wolf hunter, man. But I just haven't had the skill set and the knowledge or even everybody that I know that kills wolves are trappers, and God bless them. I don't have the time or necessarily the want or desire to be a trapper. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, there's another. Oh yeah.
Go ahead. I cut you off.
But I was saying, no, you're fine. I'm offended, by the way. I'm just kidding. No, so there's also another thing to take into consideration that not all trappers can get to where a hunter hunts wolves.
True.
And so there is, I myself, and it's probably because I live here, there's places where trappers are like, I can't get up there. Can you go up there? And I have to sometimes just work with the trappers in some way because I know where these trappers are. I'm not going to invade their space. I'm going to let them do their thing.
Yeah.
But these wolves will sometimes hit the higher elevation. All of a sudden, like I said, they'll go up to the muley elevation. There's no trappers up high. A lot of trappers they're close to road systems, trail systems where they can get their machines to. They're not packing traps in the backcountry. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
So there's a lot of opportunity for wolf hunters to get back there and to manage. Then, especially, let's talk about like even early fall, like August and September. There's no wolf trappers in backcountry.
Nope.
And by the time the trapping season starts, the wolves have already done a lot of damage throughout the year. And so that time of the year is a really good time to kill wolves. Knock them down before they really start hammering the elk during the rut.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I had the same scenario with you, except it worked out for me where I actually stuck 3 wolves with a bow.
And really?
Yeah.
Oh man, see, I would love that.
It's awesome because they don't hear the sound of the bow, and wolves are like they're an apex predator. And although they can be really skittish of people, at the same time, it's not like a whitetail where they're always picking up their head expecting danger. They know they're on the top of the food chain. So when they come in, they're there to kill. And when you start killing wolves with a bow, they don't really figure it out yet. So when they came in, I just kept on pulling back, stuck a wolf, another one come out, like, what's wrong with you, buddy? Stick another one, and before I know it, I had 3 arrows and 3 wolves. It was pretty wild.
Fantastic, man. Do you have a video of that?
I have the aftermath, unfortunately.
Oh, just the after. Okay. I'm just curious because I'd geek out on something like that. But can you talk about when, let's go back to this before we go to the next subject. Can you talk about like what the big mistakes are that people that don't know much about wolves or hunting wolves, outside of just using whatever generic call they think is a good idea at the time, are there other big time mistakes that people are making when they're hunting?
Yeah, so you have to realize that wolves figure things out really quick, and I'll use the example of vehicles. There's a time and place to use a vehicle, right? I mean, it could be a 4-wheeler, anything to go up into the wolf elevation. But if you drive up, park, and you howl off the ridge and there's a wolf pack right there, I mean, they eventually put that 2 and 2 together. It's not like an elk, you know. I used to do that in the St. Joe area. I used to run the roads and throw a bugle, and the elk would answer me back. And that's not how wolves work. A lot of cases, it works sometimes because the wolves will be across the draw, but you have to, you know, sometimes you have to simply like think of, you know, if there's a drain that you're going to howl into, park the pickup a couple 100 yards back, and then walk around the corner and throw a howl, you know, to locate.
Good point. Yeah.
And then you get guys that get howling and they try to call them in right to the vehicle. What are you doing?
Yeah, man, that drives me crazy during elk season. Like, I am not opposed to parking the truck on the road and standing in the middle of the road and letting off a bugle to locate an elk. But if you locate one, it's time to move, not think that the damn elk is going to come right to the road and sit in your truck and let you shoot him. Stuff drives me crazy. Anyway, that's a whole other soapbox I don't want to get on right now.
Right. And I apologize too, because sometimes I'll get in a rant. And
no, it's good. It's good for you. You're the guest. You can get in rants. I'm the host. I need to stop getting on rants.
No, you're good. But no, that's a thing. So this is another thing. This is actually one of the biggest mistakes people make. Shooting. You know how many people miss wolves?
Probably a lot.
Yes. You know your gun. Feel good with your gun. Can you freehand your gun at 50 yards? Practice a little bit with that. The other thing with wolves, so like if a deer and elk come in, they'll stop. Like let's say you cow call an elk to stop it, right?
Yep.
Pull back your bow. Bull walks in, stops, gives you a broadside shot.
Yep.
Deer, Matt, shoot it. Wolves have the ability to see what you are at a trot and then run back in the brush. They don't have to stop to see what you are. They can analyze you on the trot
while moving. Oh, okay. So that's something I didn't know.
Yeah.
Do you stop them somehow?
I do the best I can, but if they don't, I can still. I have the gun, and I do go in detail on the reason why I built my gun the way I did. I eventually had to build an actual wolf gun custom to what I do, because I was making a lot of mistakes. It was just because of the type of gun I had. Sure. I mean, I was good with freehanding it, but it was a long range rifle. But then when you get in those close range shots, and you got, it's a higher powered scope, so you got that 5.5 by 20 power. 5.5 is hard to lead a wolf in 5 yards. If he's running past you at 5 yards, it's hard to lead one. But so I've had to really custom a gun to where I can shoot long range, close range, just like it just feels right, and I practice with it.
Is the customization of the rifle that you're using for wolf hunting, is that in the course?
I do actually talk about that, yes.
Okay, cool.
In detail. And I could even talk a little bit about it here. It's just, I threw everything in the course. But the other thing too, is for me, is everybody's all set up on the automatic gun. And people ask me, why are you still shooting a bolt action? Isn't that, and so people think it's just you're just spraying bullets when the wolves come in.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing that. You want to make every shot count. So, guys get the wolves come in and they just spray bullets and wolves run off and there's nothing dead.
And then that wolf is educated.
They're educated. They're never going to come into a call again. So for me, I'm about making every shot count. And maybe it's just my years of experience, but I'm pretty fast with the bolt action. I know.
I shot before we started recording today. I don't even know. I'll just admit it right on the show. Mm-hmm. I shot a snowshoed hare with my bolt action.
Snap.
It was fun, man. It was super fun. The thing was hauling ass, and I got him. Anyway, so me and the kiddos, we're gonna cook up some snowshoe hare stew here in the next couple of days. But man, that just kind of got me off. Oh. I do want to talk about that. You said the hard thing with me in this kind of scenario, when I get somebody like you on that has a course and you're charging money for it, is I don't know where the line is. I don't want to step on your toes in terms of trying to get too much information because it's all going to be in the course, right?
Right.
But I still want to get, like, let's talk about the weapon you're using, the rifle you're using.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
so
cool.
I chose, and you know, there's a lot of different types of calibers out there, but I just learned that, I don't know, it's pros and cons. You can kill a wolf with a 6.5 Creedmoor, but I've watched him walk away with a 338 Ultramag bullet too.
Yeah.
And so it obviously has to do with shot placement. For me, it was more about, I've noticed that I was shooting a muzzle brake and it was just scattering the wolves. And so the one thing that I analyzed was, I remembered the time when I had my bow. Was I spraying bullets with an automatic? No. And I was more effective at shooting those wolves with a bow and arrow than I was with any other gun I've ever shot.
Because you got 3 of them with your bow, right? At the same time?
Yeah, stuck with 3 in less than a minute.
Not at the same time, but all right there. 3 different arrows, 3 different wolves.
It was as soon as one arrow left the bow, I'd pull, another arrow was out of the quiver, and I pretty much emptied my whole quiver of arrows on a wolf.
God, man, that is some Comanche shit, man. I wish you would have gotten that on video. That's awesome.
Oh, tell me about it. So now I keep my GoPro on my head. It was in my pouch, and well, actually, okay, I'll go a little bit more on the story on that. So I was elk hunting, similar story. I was cow calling, and it was in an area that I really, I've seen big bulls. I actually had just a giant last year, the year prior to this experience.
Uh-huh.
So I was in there specifically after that bull, big 7x7 I saw. But it was just one of those things where the wolves moved in, the animals moved out. And there was this little draw I was moving through and just cow calling. And I just had that feeling, when someone's staring at you and you just feel it.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I felt that feeling like something was staring at me. I looked to my left, and at 15 yards, there is a wolf just trotting at me. I usually cow call when I'm walking through thick brush to cover my sound. And he was coming to that cow call, and he was trotting in at me, and I pulled back my bow and I tried a cow call to stop the wolf. But what do you think the wolf's going to do with a cow call? It just sped up his pace.
Yeah. He just comes in quicker.
He just came in quicker. So then I finally just had to shoot right under his chin and put it right in center chest. He took 2 leaps off, tipped over, and I was just blown away. I'm like, holy crap, can't believe that just happened. Then the whole pack came out of the brush and was just sniffing that wolf like, what the freak just happened? I'm like, arrow, got another arrow knock, pulled back. And I'm looking, and I had 2 trees, and I could see a neck of a wolf. And I'm like, usually I wouldn't shoot this like on any other animal, but it's a wolf. I got to knock it down.
Send that traffic, brother.
Send it. And I shot, and I just hear yelp, and it just folded right on top of the other one. I'm like, what?
Whoa, man.
Knocked another arrow, and I see 2 wolves left, and they just scattered. And it's that snow brush that's about belly deep high.
Uh-huh.
At that point, I'd say they were about 20 yards at that point, if I remember right. And I couldn't see the 4th one, but I see the 3rd one. And so I knock another arrow, and they had no clue where this is coming from. I stuck that 3rd one, and believe it or not, that sucker ran past me 2 yards, 2 steps.
Seriously?
And I just kind of stepped to the side, and I let that thing run past me. And he was so, you could see him just losing consciousness as he was running. Like his eyes were closing, and he was stumbling over blowdowns and stuff, and the blood was just pouring out, and he just disappeared in the snow brush. So here's the unfortunate thing. I did not find the 3rd wolf, but I know he was dead. I just don't know where he died.
Oh, dang.
And he kind of got into this huckleberry brush patch where it's huckleberry brush is red.
Yep.
And we had a rain that morning. So just a combination of that, the blood was it kind of just mixed in there. And I'm sitting there wiping my finger on huckleberry brush. Like, okay, see, the huckleberry brush is red. Is that blood, or is that just the brush color?
Yeah.
And you're wiping it because it's wet. And so I'm just not getting blood. And I was just tracking and just looking in there. And at that point in that tall brush, I could have been 2 steps from it, and I couldn't see it because the brush is so thick.
I know that stuff very well, man. I hate huckleberry unless I'm huckleberry hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could get pretty tall. So anyways, I was just like, I'm sure that one's dead. I mean, I saw it lose consciousness, he was losing it. and he even made a good sized stumble. Like I almost thought he was going to tip right next to me. But anyways, I had the 2 dead there, and yeah, that was a crazy experience. And that was still during a time I was still going through the learning curve. But over time, I found out that was a very popular denning site where I killed those wolves. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so that actually, after I spent some time in there, I realized that's actually a very common area they use. And so I've used that to my advantage later on.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to hit you with like a lightning round of questions regarding this course.
Okay.
So are you ready? You pumped?
Yeah. Sure.
Are people going to learn? I'm sorry, I got off track there. Somebody texted me. That's a problem with recording over the phone, like we're doing. You get a text, and then I'm ADD anyway. But okay, are people going to learn like wolf behavioral things?
Yes.
And you're going to teach how to locate wolves and like the why of locating. Like this is why you're going to find them here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I show maps. And everything and where you'd expect to see them. Yeah.
Ah, sweet. See, that's imperative in my opinion. Are people going to learn like calling techniques?
Yes.
What about spot and stock kind of stuff?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I show all these different scenarios. I even go through, so all of our Stuck N The Rut videos, when I edit a video, I make it entertaining, right? I'm just
exactly. I heard you talking about that with your sister, with Mule Deer, and talking about how, and I want to bring this point up real quick, not to cut you off. I'm famous for that. But
no, you're good. Go.
What you're talking about there is when you're making a YouTube video for the general public to watch, to be entertained, there's elements of that to keep people engaged, right? And that's just the reality of it. But when you're talking about something where somebody needs to take the information that you're talking about and learn it, sometimes that entertainment factor is out. And with the Mule Deer course, I remember you were talking to your sister about how people just need to kind of discipline themselves enough to watch the information and go through the information so they actually learn it without worrying about being entertained. Am I off base?
You're exactly right.
Okay.
Because if you're not there to learn and you're there for entertainment, you're going to get bored.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sitting there. I'm not throwing fireworks and stuff. This is a course.
It's not cracking jokes and all this kind of stuff. It's like real information that's applicable.
Yes. And then what I do too, and for me, I'm a visual learner, right? Like for me, like I can read a magazine article on how to hunt mule deer or whatever, but it doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah.
Unless somebody actually shows me. So that's what I did on the mule deer. Yeah, and so that's exactly what I did in the mule deer course. That's exactly what I did in the wolf course. And so what I did is I'm pulling the raw footage. I'm going back to those videos, and I'm actually pulling all the raw footage and showing them step by step. This is why we came here, because of this. This is why we did this because of this. And I even, in certain sections, I have to explain what's going on. I go in detail on the entire hunt from start to finish and how we found that pack to how we executed the pack. And so I do that on all the wolf videos, including the new, and this is actually what's really neat too, is so the last wolves I killed, you probably saw that photo. I killed 4 wolves.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's when I got, obviously I got the perfect wolf gun design with the suppressor and everything. I was like, I got to recreate what I did with the bow, like where they don't know what's going on. And so in that same scenario, and this is really awesome because that's the time I was creating the class, I literally went step by step in how to kill those wolves before I killed them. I got up that morning and I was like, I'm in the mountains right now. I'm analyzing, and I just go through step by step. And I even told people that usually if I find wolf sign, it takes me 4 days to find the pack. I found the wolf pack in 2 days this time. And I went and executed it. And so I showed it completely.
I gotta stop. Oh, when you say you're talking about you executed the pack?
Well, pretty much. I mean, what I mean? Like execute.
I love it, man. I love it.
Well, okay, I saw 5 wolves, 4 died, 1 escaped from me. So,
dude, I need to buy you a beer or something. That's fantastic.
You're good. Sorry. I get into it when I start telling my stories because I get really excited. I'm like,
I can tell.
You got me in wolf mode. I'm probably going wolf hunt tomorrow. Now that I'm just talking about it,
dude, come pick me up, man. I don't work tomorrow. Come pick me up.
Yeah. I just start getting excited, but yeah. So I go in detail on all that stuff. I mean, and that's the thing too. So the reason why the mule deer course is so much cheaper than the wolf course, because you and I talked about this already. A lot of people already know about mule deer. And so I don't have to go in complete detail about the hoof of a mule deer. You know, like mule deer have hooves, you know what I mean? Like I don't have to really do that. Everybody knows that a mule deer has a hoof.
See, I didn't know, man. I thought they had paws.
Yeah, right. I mean, but like I have to go down to like explain people what a wolf track looks like, because a lot of wolf hunters, they don't know the difference between a mountain lion and even a rabbit. And I'm not making fun of people when I say that, but like, you know, sometimes rabbits will spread their feet, and so people get the idea that it's a wolf
but that's not offensive, man. I always look at it like this, man.
It's learning.
Some people, like you're one of those dudes. You are fully immersed in this stuff in your life. This is what you're I can tell when you tell me stories about the wolves you got. You are passionate as all get out. And what this course is going to do is help people that, you know, they have their day jobs, they have their family, they have these other obligations and stresses and these things in their lives that make it so they're not necessarily experts on wolves, but they want to be. They want to help the cause. They want to shoot a wolf. They want to get a wolf down and get the reimbursement from F4WM, which, by the way, if you're taking the course in Idaho and Montana, do not go wolf hunting or trapping without being a member of F4WM and save your receipts. You'll get reimbursed. It's a simple concept. We've talked about it a million times on this show. But anyway, the point is like you are immersed in it, and so you know exactly how to identify a wolf track over a mountain lion track. The common person out there is not going to know that knowledge, and it's not offensive. They're with their day job, they could tell you and I things that we wouldn't have a clue about, right? And so It's the same kind of thing. You're just trying to translate this information to people that haven't been fully immersed in it to help them be successful in the field. And that's an important point to make, and I hope people take an understanding to that without being like butthurt about it. Make sense?
Yeah, exactly. People, that's the thing. You have to really humble yourself with this situation. And that's what I do is, like, for me, I have to think about that because, yeah, like you said, I know what a mountain lion track is. I can drive down the road 40 miles an hour, and if I can see a wolf track comparative, like there could be deer, elk, mountain lion, but like I see a wolf track, I slam on the brakes, I know it's a wolf track. Like I've just seen how their strides are and everything. It's kind of comes second nature to me. But someone who's first time hunting, they're probably going to have to stop at every track in the snow, like, what is that?
And analyze it. Yeah. And I've found myself doing that. I've sat there and I've analyzed, like, is this a mountain lion or is this a wolf track? And so that's the kind of stuff that would help guys like me when we're out there with this course. Sorry, not to try to overly promote this for you listening out there, but that's kind of the point of this discussion is so many people have expressed interest in becoming successful. I'm getting tongue-tied here. I'm so excited about it. Successful wolf hunters, and they ask me how to go about it, and I don't have an answer for them. Guys, I'm not trying to like overly promote it. Like, Tom, are you going to pay me? Are you going to pay me for promoting this course?
Heck no.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, I'm not getting paid for this. Like, I'm not getting a cut of it. It's just genuinely and legitimately, so many people have asked me through the course ever since the first few episodes when we had Justin Webb on. Justin Webb was one of the first guests on the show a few years ago. I don't know how many years ago. I think we're coming up on anyway. And ever since then, people have been asking me, how do I become an expert at this? Well, I don't know, but now I have the answer because I met Tom Schneider. And so that's why I'm pushing this stuff. It's that important to me. And you folks listening in like Washington and Oregon, I think this would be critical for you as well, Because if you guys that come over here to like Idaho and Montana to hunt elk and you get you a wolf tag, invest in yourself to actually punch that wolf tag. Like if you're in California listening, we have a lot of listeners in California and places like Texas and Pennsylvania. You guys all come out west to hunt. And I always encourage you guys have heard me encourage you a million times to get a wolf tag just in case. But if you invest a little bit more and take this course, and let's say you're up on the mountain and you get an idea, you find some wolf sign, you see some tracks, you see some whatever the case is, or maybe the whole drainage you're hunting is totally quiet. That's a really good indicator there's probably wolves in the area. All of a sudden, you're going to have this knowledge to pull out of your toolbox and maybe go punch a tag on a wolf. Anyways,
exactly.
Again, soapbox, man. I went off on a soapbox. I want dead wolves.
Yeah, no, and that's where I'm at too. You know, I've actually had a couple Washington hunters, talk to me, and I'm for me, I hunt out of state, so I'm totally cool with people coming here too. But at the same time, the reason why that out-of-state hunter killed a deer or an elk is because there's wolf trappers and hunters that have been knocking the wolves down in those areas. And so, a thank you is great, but also them contributing the time too. And just keep, like for us, all I ask is to keep a wolf tag in your pocket, because that can happen. Keep a wolf tag. Because you don't want to miss that opportunity. And well, let me say this, keep a couple wolf tags in your pocket, because usually more than one ends up showing up. And so, and I even had guys say that where they're just like, oh, like I shot one wolf, but I couldn't shoot the rest of the pack because I only have one tag. It's like, don't do that to yourself. It's okay. Just buy a couple more tags. You know what I mean? Yeah,
they're super cheap, man. Even for non-residents, they're super cheap. Do you know what they are for non-residents?
I think it's like $40 or something per wolf tag.
Per wolf tag. But
remember, you get your wolf, that's going to pay for it. A wolf is incredible. Like, I mean, they are really cool. I will say, like, I may be, there's moments where I'm like, I don't like what they do, the damage they do, but they're really cool animal. When you walk up to them, it's like, man, I got to get that mounted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. You've probably been here in the Cenex here in town, in Clark Fork. They've got this wolf mount right over the entry door. They just put a Santa Claus hat on them because it's the season, but it is, man. I know exactly what you're saying. Like, for me, I wish they never would have reintroduced him to the Intermountain West, but they have. And so the reality is, and the thing that I've talked about on this show for a long time is we have to accept the reality that wolves are here and just require the management from us as hunters and trappers to keep the numbers in check. Because if you go out there and you start talking about, shoot, shovel, shut up out on Facebook and whatnot, these pro-wolf and these anti-hunting organizations, they pick up on that kind of stuff. And so that's the inappropriate way to approach this. The right way to approach this is to educate yourself on how to hunt them and manage them and become part of the solution instead of part of the problem, which is feeding right into PETA's freaking propaganda machine that they put out on social media all the time. And it's so critical, and I don't know where you stand on it, Tom, but that stuff is so critical in my mind as we move forward in this new age of this anti-hunting, this pro-wolf, I don't know what it is about predator animals in general.
They're cute.
Yeah, they're cute. A cute grizzly bear and a cute, wolf, and these Hollywood images that they propagate on the general public just make it very difficult for us. So we've got to stop with this SSS bullshit and start talking about what is a real solution. Because people that write SSS on Facebook have never SSS jack shit. And so, sorry, man, I get, again, going off here. So,
I agree with you. So, like, we talked about the Foundation for Wildlife Management. Why that Idaho has the best management program than any other state in the lower 48? It's because
F4WM.
S4WM. Does F4WM promote illegal activity and killing wolves and shutting up about it?
No,
they don't.
No, they provide a solution. They provide a viable solution.
And they work with the state into making, good plans. And everybody doesn't like that. I don't know why people don't like that. They're like, they shouldn't be working with the state. It's like,
I know.
What? Like that's how you make plans. I mean, these are like, look at Washington. And this thing is like, and I even look at Montana, and I'm not saying anything bad about Montana because I love hunting Montana.
Oh yeah.
But there's trappers and hound hunters that can't get along because the hound hunter ends up, one of their hounds get in a trap and they get pissed off at trappers.
Yep.
And vice versa. But the reality is the trapper's there to keep the wolves down. And if the trapper's not there, then the hounds get killed by wolves. And so what I like about the Foundation for Wildlife Management is everybody, houndsmen, trappers, hunters, have all got together and said, we need to create a good solution. And that's why Idaho has such an amazing management plan. We've actually been doing really well, and probably the most effective out of any of the other states right now.
To include Alaska at this point, like that. You made a wonderful point there, Tom. We've all got hunting organizations, and like we have Idaho Trappers Association, which I'm a member of and I'm a big fan of. But the Foundation for Wildlife Management, what you just talked about is beneficial to all parties. It's even beneficial to pro wolf lovers that have no sense of reality when it comes to what a real wolf actually is, because they live in downtown San Francisco and think that wolves are cute and cuddly. It's even beneficial to them because there's one or two things that are going to happen. And that is the wolf population will get so out of hand that the state agencies will take control and eradicate them, like what happened. And that seems like, unrealistic, but that is a truly potential outcome for these wolves. If they get so out of hand, the state agencies will do that. The other side to that is the wolves will become so out of hand that they eradicate basically all the other wildlife around, and we get what Dr. Valerius Geis calls a predator pit throughout the state of Idaho. And we've just got no ungulate species left. And that's going to be bad for the wolf as well. And so, anyways, again, you could tell, man, I get real passionate about this kind of stuff because it's so important. And the messaging in which we do this is so important as well. Is there, I know I'm keeping you along here, man, but I want to touch on the mule deer course before we cut this off. But is there anything else that you want to touch on when it comes to the wolf, wolf hunting masters class? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the wolf hunting master class.
Wolf hunting masters class. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Actually, why don't you tell us how much it is?
It's $447. Sorry, $447 is the rate it's going. And I really spent a lot of time thinking about that. For me, I want it to be affordable for everybody, but at the same time, like I said, I don't want people to neglect the information either. It's nice for me to be able to work with a small amount of people and helping them become better wolf hunters. First,
I want in, man.
Variety. Yeah. And
that's not like, if you think about the reimbursement rates, that the first wolf you get will pay for that.
Exactly. And that's, and it's like, compared to the mule deer class, I think I was saying was the mule deer course, it's not as much because a lot of the information, people know the basics of a mule deer. Mm-hmm. But the wolf, I have to go straight to square one and teach everything about a wolf because there's no information on it. So I have to go that route. And there's a lot of information in there that's going to help you guys out. And in the long run, it's going to save you money. I'm not doing this for just to help you guys short term. This is to help you long term.
And let's be honest, man. There's not going to be, like, the masses of hunters out there are not going to go drop almost $500 on a wolf class, right?
Right.
But the ones that do are gonna put that money to use. They want that money back. Exactly. Like me, I'll get the course, dude. I'll buy it tonight. I'm all over that kind of thing because I am one of those people that I will dedicate myself to getting out there and getting reimbursed for that money and seeing the results. And it's not about the money for me. For me, it's about I am sick of driving up my roads in the morning when I'm on my way to go elk hunting and seeing a moose ripped apart in the middle of the road that wasn't there the night before when I drove out of there. And I'm sick of the moose getting wiped out. I'm sick of the elk getting wiped out. I'm sick of the mule deer getting wiped out. and all these things that factor into this problem that a lot of people want to turn a blind eye to, that is a lack of predatory management with our wolves. Well, I don't want to see wolves eradicated from the landscape. I don't. I like having them. I actually really like hearing them, and I hear them from my property sometimes, and I like hearing them. But they need to be managed, just like everything else out there. There needs to be a management system. You can't. This whole philosophy of let nature be nature is so out of balance and out of touch with reality. I can't even. I could do a whole podcast on that topic.
Mm-hmm.
We have to manage these animals. And if we're going to, we have to be effective at it so that we're not educating these animals. Just like all you Doug Fluties out there that sit on the road without even turning your four-wheeler off and bugling at elk. Like, what? These elk do this for a living. You think they don't know what you're doing? You're educating these elk. And it's tenfold when you're talking about a wolf because they're that much smarter.
Exactly.
So, I think it's a great deal. I think it's a great deal. 447, is that what you said?
Yes.
So in most areas, the minimum, and maybe you can help me with this, Tom. I'm like kind of a little bit out of touch with this, but at 4WM, the minimum reimbursement is $500?
Yeah, so if you kill one wolf in Montana or Idaho, the minimum is $500. You get $500 back. You get a situation like me, the last time I was out, killed 4 wolves. That's a good chunk of money.
That's a good chunk of money.
What if you're in the area of $1,000 of wolves? I mean, it goes up to...
Yeah, like I think it's like unit 10 or something. Like they're huge reimbursement numbers.
Yeah, you can get up to $2,500 a wolf. Imagine if you killed 4 wolves in that unit.
Yeah. Not to mention if you sell a skull or you hide the wolf out, you know, all those things that you can, because you got to check a wolf in, but you still get to keep all, like F4WM isn't taking your hide and then reimbursing you, right? Like
exactly.
You keep the hide, you keep the skull. No, it's a great program, man. It's great. Can we switch gears here for just a sec and just cover your mule deer course?
Yes. All right. Mule deer mode. All right.
I apologize. I know we're going long, man. But
you're good.
You're like one of those guests that when I get on the show, I'm going to keep you. You're like this is hostage situation until you hang up on me, right?
Dude, I'm good. Honestly, I got time, so we're good.
Let me ask you something, man. Being a North Idaho guy, we're not particularly known for our epic mule deer hunting, right?
Right.
What got you so into mule deer hunting?
So, I mean, I think it was the sense of that first time of being, I think it was just the image of being in a burn and seeing a big 28-inch wide muley with a doe with my dad being 12 years old.
You were 12?
I was 12.
Okay.
And my brother he's 2 years older than me, so he was 14. My older brother shot that muley. He was a 180 class buck.
Oh,
yeah, 14 years old. And it just, in that deep snow, it was just the most majestic animal. And I still have that image in my head to this day. And ever since then, I've just been hooked. But same or do, where it's like, as a kid, I would just hit that same spot. Like, that's all I knew where to go was to that spot. And I didn't really know how to hunt muleys, but I just wanted to recreate that image in my head. And, we'd hit the mule deer elevation. And back then there was actually a lot of mule deer. So it didn't take a skilled mule deer hunter to actually learn how to hunt mule deer. But I started learning a lot about snow conditions and how to, find muleys, how bucks react to the rut.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gained a great foundation on how to hunt big timber muleys by, I'd say it was about 2008 is when I started I started killing consistent big bucks and it started going on. And then I started to travel. So then I traveled to southern Idaho. I've hunted muleys in southern Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, central, and the timber side of Montana, Utah. We've actually killed some good bucks in Utah.
Oh, really?
And there was a thing where I was like, I started thinking that they were different mule deer, which they kind of are, right? They do act a little bit different. But then I started realizing that they're all the same deer, it's just the weather's different, the terrain's different. All these other things are just different. I was going to
say the landscape, they just live, based on the landscape they're on, right? That's the only difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's with that wide variety of knowledge that we've gained mule deer hunting, and we've been successful in pulling big bucks in these other areas, open country, timber country. I actually decided, like, you know what, like this would be great for the mule deer class, and I taught like if the terrain's like this, hunt it like this. If the terrain's like that, hunt it like that. And I explained why. I go same thing with the wolves. I do in a sense explain the mule deer and why does a big buck act the way he does. Mainly that this course actually doesn't just focus on mule deer in general, but I'm actually focusing on big bucks because big bucks act much different than the rest of mule deer, young bucks and does. There's a reason why a big buck's still alive, especially where I live and you live. This is public land, a general tag where anybody can grab a tag and go hunt in most cases. I think there's a limit with non-residents, right?
Yeah, there is.
But it's not.
It depends on the unit.
Right. It does depend on the unit in Idaho, but there's a lot of at least where I live, it's pretty easy to get a tag. So those big muley bucks really know how to hide.
Yeah,
and they get really elusive. But the thing is, what I've started to notice was even the most hardcore mule deer hunters that taught me how to hunt big muleys, they stopped killing big muleys after the wolves came through. And a lot of these other guys, and I started realizing I'm the only one still pulling big bucks. And I thought that was really interesting. But what I realized was I was more versed with mule deer because of the other regions I've hunted. And so that's why, and a lot of that I also applied to the thick timber country, but vice versa too. So I'll go to hunting, for example, I'll use this example. I hunted I don't know if I brought up Colorado. I pulled a big buck in Colorado 2 years ago. And I kept in contact with 8 other hunting groups. Not one of those hunting groups pulled a buck off that mountain.
Oh, that's right. I heard you talk about this somewhere.
Yeah. And so, and
yeah, go ahead.
And so what happened is I understood the way the weather was acting and stuff, the bucks were timbering up. And some of these guys were just like, oh, we were just glassing them. We just weren't seeing them. I'm like, did you check the timber? No. Like, those bucks, they're in the timber. You got, some people, when they see muleys head the timber, it's like the hunt's over for the day. It's chill out at camp. And then we'll just glass in the evening when the deer come back out. It's like, the deer don't disappear off the face of the earth. Yeah. They're still on the earth. Like, you have to just know how to hunt them in the timber. And you can literally hunt mule deer all day. And so that's a lot. I teach that a lot in the course, but I do know for a fact that the biggest sales that I got with the mule deer was the rut, because we were really well known in hunting mule deer during the rut. And you guys are. And so that's what a lot of people thought. Like, a lot of people that think of us, they think of the November big rutting bucks. And so I know for a fact, like when I went through November, it was just like I was getting sales like crazy, and it was great because I was getting tons of photos. Like, people were sending photos of all the big bucks they're killing. I had this first time, oh my gosh, I was so jealous. He just pulled just a giant. And I just got back from Kodiak Island, and he's like, oh, thank you so much for this course. This is a big buck. And I was like, whoa. Pretty impressed. And close to where I hunt too. I'm like, I'm happy for you, but can I be jealous at the same time? But I was super happy for him. But that's what I want to see from everybody. I want to see your success. I want everybody to give me feedback and to show me your success. And the same thing with the wolf course too. Like, for me too, although it's for predator management, wolf hunting is a fun, man. Like, calling in a wolf pack,
it would be a ball. It'd be a ball.
Yeah, imagine calling in a bull elk. That's heart racing. Imagine an entire wolf pack circling you.
Like 6 of them.
Yeah. Barking.
It's an interesting thing, howling. Man. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I said what I gotta say.
No, a totally interesting thing. I love it, man. You're a man after my own heart when it comes to. First of all, I love mule deer hunting. I am a mule deer fanatic, because that's what I grew up doing. In fact, mule deer wrecked me for everything else. Like
Yeah.
I was taught that you hunt everything like you hunt a mule deer, and I'm really good at finding mule deer and hunting mule deer. But it screwed me when it comes to like elk hunting and whitetail hunting. I've just gotten into whitetail hunting the last few years, and I'm starting to get a pretty good handle on it. But and this is what I wanted to ask you, because this is just my personal opinion from a guy who's hunted both through multiple different states. In my opinion, there is nothing dumber than a 3-point or less mule deer.
Yep.
That changes. However, there's like a 2 or 3-point whitetail is pretty. They're pretty cunning. They're pretty smart. They're not dummies. They get kind of dumb, around this time in November. But like yesterday, I had like this. I don't know what he was. I didn't look at him that hard. 2x3 whitetail, and he's just like walking right in front of me, dude. And he knew I was there, but he didn't care. He just kept. 35, 40 yards. I could have used a slingshot and knocked him over. It was super funny. So this time of year they get dumb. But the point being is, like, a 3-point mule deer is dumber than a 3-point whitetail, in my opinion. However, there is a shift that happens where you get this big, mature mule deer buck, and in my opinion, they are wiser and smarter than a big whitetail. And I don't mean to offend any whitetail guys out there when I say that, but there is some, like, you can't pattern them, in my opinion. I don't know. Am I off base? Tell me what your thoughts are on it, because you're the expert.
Well, I killed whitetails too, and yeah, I think just anything that gets big, like a bull elk. I get those bull, there's those big bull elk. They don't come in the calls anymore. Yeah. They don't winter with the other elk. They actually winter on north slopes, completely avoid the other elk, and they're completely unpredictable. Big muley bucks are the same way, and honestly, it's just like sometimes you just catch them during the rut, and we do teach that. We teach that, like, how do you catch those big bucks in the rut? Because you can go in their area. I'll give you a good example. So here's a buck that I've been watching, still alive. Haven't killed him yet. So yeah,
I like your attitude, brother.
Yeah. So got his sheds from this spring, I watched him this winter, picked up his sheds. And then, for me, I know, with my knowledge of muleys, I knew where he was going to summer. So what did I do? I set trail cams in his summering grounds. I got photos of him this summer. And so, I'm knowing what this deer's doing. Yeah, a lot of people would have, they pick up the sheds, but they don't know where he's going to be at this summer, early fall. So, like, I teach you that. I teach you how to scalp, find these bucks, find these big bucks where they're living. You won't find that buck in the same spot you're going to find does, or younger bucks like you were talking about, where they're dumb. Yeah. And they put themselves in areas where they're vulnerable. Big bucks, big muley bucks don't put themselves where they're vulnerable. You will notice they're in completely different terrain. And, I'll be even that we've done the early archery season, in the fall, you'll see those big bucks. They're nowhere near the big groups of bucks. You'll see these groups of bucks and stuff, like in Utah, we hunted Utah, and there'd be these big groups of muleys, and but you would not see a big one. And all of a sudden you see this big masher, and he's all by himself way up the canyon. Yep. And it's like, well, why is he there? And why are they there? I teach you that. That's all being taught in the course, is all that. And then on top of that, the timber country. And I actually got a lot of people from British Columbia, because British Columbia muley hunting is the same like the big timber country in Idaho and Montana, even Washington. They got the same muleys, and so they're hunting that country. When you're hunting big timber country, your binos are not really helpful for you. I mean, you still use.
I've tried to explain that. People don't believe me when I say that, man. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it's just they don't really do much for you, and all your shots. I mean, yeah, they're an archery range, but usually you don't, if you're packing your bow, you're not going to have much of a shooting lane because of all the brush and stuff. But, but timber hunting is a very, it can be very effective if you do it right. And a lot of guys just walk aimlessly in the timber, hoping they catch a big buck. And especially in this era, when you got wolves, that makes it a bit more difficult. But for me, I just it just kind of comes natural to me to find the deer elevation, to find the deer. When the snow does this, I find them here. If the snow does that, I find them there. If it rains, it's just understanding, all the scenarios again, going back to scenarios and knowing how to find deer that way.
See, man, I need that course, man. I mastered mule deer hunting in Utah in that big wide open terrain and super high elevation. I can find them. I can find
it's fun.
Yeah, it's so much fun, man. One of my favorite hunts. So one thing I miss about, I guess it was back in like 2007 or 2008. I took a job down in Salt Lake and moved back down there for a couple years, and I did this hunt. And I'm not going to say the unit in case it's somebody else's favorite hunt down there. It was a ball. This early season archery hunt, and there were bucks everywhere, man. And we're like 10,000 feet elevation. But they were on the move that early in the year. They're just moving all the time, right? And so anyway, it was a riot, and I miss that. I miss that big time, and I've never been able to replicate it in this big timber country of North Idaho. I can always find mule deer, and I can find decent mule deer. But I can't seem to find monster mule deer like I had the ability to in Utah. And so I want to take that course too. I'm going to become a PhD in Stuck in the Rut content over this winter, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, Tom. We're going on just about 2 hours here, man. I didn't mean to keep you this long, but it's been a great conversation. There's so much content out there, and I just appreciate you coming on and sharing this. I think a lot of people would get a lot out of these courses. Whether it's the mule deer hunt or the wolf hunting master class. It's also the mule deer hunting master class, right?
Yeah. So the mule deer, because obviously that was my first one. I ended up being a little too wordy when I first purchased the domain name. I purchased it as Stuck N The Rut Mule Deer Master Class.
Oh, gotcha.
And I was like, man, that's just a bit wordy. So with the wolf, so that's the mule deer class, but then the wolf is the wolf hunting master class. But I'll give you both links so that you can leave it on there for them, so anyone can just click it. It'll just lead them right to where they want to go.
Perfect. Yeah, guys, so that's all going to be in the show notes, so you guys can check that out and see. I want you guys to look at it, like jump on there and really consider how important is this stuff to you. Like instead of maybe if you've got a pack you bought a year or two ago, instead of upgrading that for this upcoming season, maybe invest in your own knowledge. And we've said this a million times with some of the other courses we've had on here for elk hunting or whatever. But this is important stuff. Like master your craft. And this is how you do it. From people that have mastered it and spent a decade in the field, instead of spending a decade in the field trying to master it yourself, jump on and buy this class. I think it's worth it. Like I'm going to. So I don't know. You got anything to add to that, Tom?
No, I think that's great. Yeah. Master your, the other thing, just the last thing I want to mention too, is for me, I'm a simple man. And so I try to simplify what's difficult. And so in the course, I'm trying to simplify wolf hunting to people, really make it make sense. For me, that's with mule deer too. I have to learn everything about the animal to become the perfect hunter. And so I don't just teach about how to hunt, but I have to teach exactly what the animal does, like how the animal behaves, and then certain techniques and how I like to execute the hunt. Everybody has their own techniques, but I have a specific technique and how I like to do it. And more than just one, because I think that's what makes you a better hunter, right? If you have 5 or 6 different techniques to hunt the timber, 5 or 6 different techniques to hunt the open country.
Yeah,
you need those
for sure.
For all the different scenarios, depending on weather. I mean, I know mule deer hunters, like guys that are just really skilled at it, but if the weather's just wrong, they don't kill deer.
That's me. That's totally me. Like it has to be a certain exact weather type for me to be successful.
Yeah. And so I teach all those. And obviously, although I'm doing all the talking, this is not just knowledge coming from me. This is coming from all the best mule deer hunters. This is the same thing with wolf hunting. Like I'm surrounded by some of the best wolf trappers known. Like, I mean, one guy, I'm not going to give the name. He's a guy that's really low profile, but he and his son are up to 80 something plus wolves in Idaho right now. And, you know,
that's fantastic.
Him and I bounce information off each other all the time. If I notice something's going on, I tell him. If he knows something's going on. And so, like, this is like, although I'm the teacher, I'm giving you the best knowledge from guys that really know what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. No, that's exactly the concept that we talk about a lot on this program is, you know, that collective of ideas, if you will, you know, where our mind's a toolbox. We just need the tools in our mind, right? And so that's what this offers. And so, man, that's awesome. That's awesome stuff, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Dude, I appreciate so much just having me on. And yeah, it's just good to talk to people. I'm out here in the bush all by myself. I'm just kidding. Always up in the mountains. Just
dude,
talking to the animals.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. I need to come up and I'll buy you a cup of coffee or something up in Bonners Ferry at some point, and it's great to know that you're out there, and didn't know you guys were this close to me, and so definitely hit me up if you're in Clark Fork, and just again, thanks for coming on, Tom. This was a great conversation. I'd love to do this again, just to kind of keep people updated as things change and move forward. So let's keep in touch. The wolf hunting master class and the mule deer hunting master class, but with Stuck in the Rut before it on the website, guys. All that stuff's going to be in the show notes. Seriously, check it out. See what you guys think. And Tom, again. Thanks for coming on, man. We'll be in touch.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
You made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.